The laughter hadn't quite died when Fallon leaned in with a grin, tossing a line meant to land lightly. "You know, Keanu, you've always had that Zen mystery vibe, even back when Hollywood was just trying to look normal." The crowd chuckled. Keanu didn't. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. For a second, the cameras captured something. Stillness, maybe. Or restraint. Then Keanu's voice, low but clear. "Normal, huh?" A pause. Funny how normal always seems to leave the same faces off the guest list. The audience quieted, unsure if they were meant to laugh. Fallon shifted. "I mean, no offense, obviously." Keanu didn't blink. "You ever think about how many people didn't get here because someone who looked like you thought they wouldn't sell?" Fallon opened his mouth, closed it. Nothing came. The studio fell still, the energy flatlining. And just like that, the show stopped, backstage. The silence pressed harder than the lights ever could. Fallon sat frozen, unsure whether to laugh it off or pretend the moment hadn't just gutted the room. But the crowd wasn't laughing. Somewhere behind the cameras, a producer's voice crackled through a headset, clipped, urgent. "Cut to commercial." Another voice, quieter, almost pleading. "Wait." But it was too late. Narration pulled us beneath the surface, past the polished stage and celebrity sparkle, into the guts of late-night television, the quiet back halls where power chose who made it and who didn't. There had always been whispers. A joke written, never aired. A pitch meeting, eyes already decided. A Latina writer named Sophia once sat across from a table of men who never read her packet. She submitted 87 jokes. Not one made it past the intern. She wasn't invited back. A montage of headshots, comedians of color, full of promise, their names now forgotten. A crumpled note from a young black comic. "Maybe I just wasn't what they wanted to laugh at." Inside a smoky boardroom years ago, a voice, muffled but clear. "He's too urban for our demo." Another. "We've already got one black guest this month." Then, in a clipped whisper, "Can she be less political?" Keanu had been there. Not in the room, but close enough to feel its chill. Jamal Bennett, his roommate at UCLA. Brilliant. Loud in his joy. Sharp in his wit. He was the one who had pushed Keanu to audition, who once said, "Hollywood doesn't need another white hero, but it might need a truth teller." He got one meeting. They never called back. Keanu's voice in memory, soft but certain. He wrote punchlines better than I ever could. They never even returned his call. Back in the studio, the silence had weight now. Fallon's face twitched, caught between discomfort and denial. He shifted in his seat, smiled nervously, but no words came. From somewhere in the audience, a single voice, unsure but firm. "Say something, Jimmy." The moment hovered, untouched. A producer's hands hovered over the switch. Fallon's mouth opened, then closed. Keanu didn't move. He didn't need to. One sentence had cracked the stage floor open. The narration whispered, slow and heavy. And underneath, the rot was impossible to unsee. No one clapped. No one joked. Because something far louder than laughter had just filled the room. The morning after, the internet didn't just stir, it detonated. Clips of Keanu's words, frozen mid-sentence, flooded every feed. No background music. No filters. Just truth. Loop after loop. You ever think about how many people didn't get here because someone who looked like you thought they wouldn't sell? Hashtag surged. Hashtag Keanu stopped the show trended within hours. Some called it courage. Others, cancellation. But everyone watched. Fallon's team moved fast. A polished apology posted to socials. An old photo with a black guest reposted. Smiling captions reading, always about inclusion. But beneath the surface, things didn't feel curated anymore. They felt cracked. 3 days later, Keanu sat across from a national anchor in a studio washed in neutral tones. No applause. No jokes. Just questions. The anchor looked at him, hesitant but firm. Why did you say it? Keanu didn't blink. Because silence is how racism survives, he said. Jokes become judgment. Judgment becomes hiring decisions. And then talent just disappears. A screen flickered. Fallon appeared via pre-recorded clip, stiff in a blue shirt. He looked directly into the camera, eyes tired. I never meant to hurt anyone, he began, voice wavering. I think I've always tried to be inclusive, he forced a laugh. It didn't land. A bead of sweat clung to his brow. He blinked too long, then too fast. The screen cut again. A live public forum. Rows of chairs, mics, bottled water. But the mood was courtroom. Former writers, comedians, interns, they filed in, one by one. A woman in her 40s adjusted the mic, voice calm but firm. He made me rewrite my jokes to sound less ghetto. That was the word he used. A comic, maybe late 20s, leaned forward. I watched my spot disappear the day after I called out his producer. They said the schedule was full. The room didn't gasp. It didn't need to. The silence was heavier. Keanu sat in the back, watching. Quiet. Unblinking. No cameras on him. No statements prepared. He wasn't there for spotlight. He wasn't even there to speak. He wasn't there to be a hero, the narration said. He was there to make silence impossible. And somehow, that made every word louder. Weeks passed. The buzz dulled, but the consequences sharpened. Fallon sat in the green room, still, under lights that no longer meant anything. The mirror in front of him glowed softly, untouched makeup kits laid out as if they still mattered. But the room was too quiet. Not mournful, just vacant. His phone vibrated once. A text from his daughter. "Did you really say that?" He stared at it, thumb hovering, then let it dim. No reply. Outside the door, interns walked by. None looked in. No one knocked. His name wasn't whispered anymore. It wasn't spoken at all. Bookings pulled out quietly. Not a statement, just an empty calendar. Sponsors paused campaigns. Emails cold and legal. The network didn't cancel the show. It simply moved his time slot. That was enough. Meanwhile, the world kept spinning, just not around him. Keanu's face appeared on magazine covers, not smiling, just there. Headlines read, "The Quiet Reckoning." A new kind of resistance. Jamal Bennett, once a name lost in silence, was suddenly on Netflix's homepage. His stand-up special hit #1. Sophia, the Latina writer, signed with a top publisher. Her memoir, Notes from the Writer's Room, What I Couldn't Say Out Loud, climbed the bestseller list. And a black woman, eyes sharp, smile steady, opened the first night of her new primetime segment with one line. "Let's talk about who gets to be heard." Fallon returned to the studio eventually, not for a comeback, just to see if anything was left. There was no band, no laughter, no guest waiting in the wings. Just him, walking out to an empty chair in an empty room. He sat, looked at the camera, and for once, there was no performance left in him. "You can be the joke," he began, voice low, cracking. "Or you can be the punchline. I didn't know I was both." No applause followed. Across the city, Keanu sat on a subway, hood up, unread book in his lap. A teenager passed him, paused, and nodded. "Thanks," he said, voice barely above the rattle of the train. Then he stepped off. Keanu nodded back. No smile. Just stillness. Justice doesn't always arrive with applause, the narration whispered. Sometimes it slips in through a pause and lingers long after the laughter dies. And in the quiet between stations, Keanu thought, not about Fallon, but about everyone before him. It wasn't about canceling him, he realized. It was about remembering everyone they tried to forget.